What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we got something new for you guys. We got a Dynasty video. We're going to talk about my must buy and sell Dynasty trade targets. We're going to go over my rebuilding trade targets, my contending trade targets, all that good stuff. Now, some of you guys are going to be out here, Ron, why are you putting out Dynasty content in week 16? It's the playoffs. My trade deadline is passed. The thing is, in Dynasty leagues, most leagues don't have trade deadlines at all. So I figure, I put this video out. Some of you guys can still trade in some of your leagues. I know I can trade in like 80% or more of my Dynasty leagues. So I figured this would be a fun video to put out. Why not? I know a lot of you guys beg me for more Dynasty content. I'm telling you guys, all the guys that love Dynasty, stay subscribed, stay tuned. The offseason, literally from February through May, June, is going to be 80% Dynasty content. We have a long winter ahead of us of Dynasty content, but why not give you guys a nice little sneak preview? Now, as always, we're going to get into this video. If you want access to my entire Dynasty rankings, my trade target channel in the Discord, there's like 5 exclusive ones that didn't make the list that I put in there. All of that in the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. It's literally $5. I give too much value away. You get all of that. You get my seasonal stuff. You get access to exclusive Discord channels. You get access to subscriber leagues, all that good stuff and more. Now, without further ado, make sure you subscribe if you're new. Leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical.
So we're going to attack these trade targets from a couple different angles. We're going to talk about the guys who are rebuilding. So you're in your league. It's the playoffs. It's round 2. But you're going to have some guys on your team that are depreciating assets. Guys like, Leonard Fournette before he got hurt. We want to offload these really old running backs, or not really old running backs, but just any old running backs that are producing in general. Even guys that are, about to get a new contract. I'd be looking to move guys like David Montgomery, Miles Sanders. Darrell Henderson's value isn't anything. Ronald Jones would be interesting to move. I'd even be moving guys like Derrick Henry. If I'm a rebuilding team, I'm moving anybody that's not in their first 2 years. So even guys like I'm moving Alvin Kamara, I'm moving Dalvin Cook, I'm moving Aaron Jones, any of those guys. I'm moving all of those guys if I'm rebuilding. You don't want to hold the bag on those players. A lot of those running backs are going to lose value. A lot of them could get hurt in the offseason. I just don't want to be holding on to running backs at all in a rebuild. So if I'm rebuilding, you take one of those assets and you go to a team out there that is contending or is just kind of in limbo. And if they have Deshaun Watson, that is one of the guys that I'd be targeting in a rebuild. Now, these values are taken from KTC, keeptradecut.com. It's pretty much a crowdsourcing website that has a pretty accurate list of where ADP is, or just kind of like market value on players. They have Deshaun Watson at the 512 as the quarterback 17. I have him on my rankings at the 312 as the quarterback 12. So I have him 2 rounds ahead, and I have him 5 quarterback spots ahead. And we're not going to comment on the allegations, the happy ending massages, whatever he's got going on there. All that we want to really focus in on is we want to swerve the controversial stuff and then talk about what are we doing with him in Dynasty and how we project that moving forward. Right now, I put a poll out on Twitter. Maybe my favorite perk of having any followers on Twitter, and I can, I got a little bit of I got a little bit of Twitter clout. I got 3,000 followers. If you're out there, don't know I have a Twitter, follow me at Ron Stewart _ There was a time and place where I had more YouTube subscribers. I still have more YouTube subscribers than Twitter followers, but I had maybe 300 Twitter followers for a really long time. But now, got a little bit of clout. Your boys got a little bit of clout. I can put a nice poll out there. That's my favorite thing. I still do think people get annoyed from my polls, but it's nice. I can put a poll out and get 250 votes sometimes. I think that's a cool little perk of having any kind of a crumb of clout is what I have on Twitter, but that's nice. And I asked, Deshaun Watson, what are the odds that he plays in week 1 of next year? And it's about a 50-50 chance that he plays in week 1, just on public opinion. I think surveying public opinion is one of the better indicators of just kind of where the market is at, especially in a game like Dynasty where it's so economics and market dependent. I personally would say that I don't know if he plays week 1, but I like the idea of a 50-50 chance. And I'd put at 80% or more chance that he plays at some point next season and resumes his career forever, whether he has a 4-game suspension, 8-game suspension, something like that. I do believe that Deshaun Watson starts at quarterback next year and then resumes his career like nothing really happened. Now, you can agree or disagree if that is the rightful punishment for whatever he has going on. Again, we're not commenting on that. We're just kind of looking at it from an objective perspective. What is Roger Goodell? What is the league going to do? That's what I believe. And when you have Deshaun Watson at QB 17, you're putting a massive uncertainty discount on something that isn't super uncertain. Because if Deshaun Watson was healthy right now, or not healthy, I guess he's not. It's not that he's not healthy, but if he was playing, he wasn't in this weird, cloud of uncertainty. He would be a top 6 dynasty quarterback. If none of these allegations were out, he's finished as a top 5 quarterback in each of his last 3 active seasons. He has the Konami code. He has everything going for him. So for a guy who is a top 6 dynasty quarterback, the minute his pinky toe touches one blade of grass, QB 17 feels like a massive discount in my opinion. Again, I said I have him at quarterback 12. You are pretty much paying an uncertainty price, an uncertainty discount on him. The thing is, at quarterback 17, you're getting the same uncertainty discount on Deshaun Watson as guys like Tua and Zach Wilson. Those are guys in the same exact range. 2 quarterbacks that I would say moving forward the next 3 years are question marks. So their upside is a question mark. The same thing with Deshaun Watson. He's a question mark, but as soon as he touches the field next season, he is a top 6 dynasty asset. That is pretty much locked in to his upside or his range of outcomes, which is why I have Deshaun Watson higher than consensus and why on rebuilding teams where I can stand to wait for him to come back, I'm shooting out offers for him. He's pretty much my most owned quarterback on all my rebuilds. And if I could send, if I had Mac Jones, let's say I have Mac Jones in a rebuild, if I could do Mac Jones for Deshaun Watson, I would do that in a heartbeat. I know some guys out there would make a deal like that. I checked Keep Trade Cut. All of these, potential trades all work through there. So you can do Mac Jones for Deshaun Watson. Apparently you can send Jerry Jeudy for Deshaun Watson. Jerry Jeudy's like wide receiver 21. And I get the optimism around Jerry Jeudy, but year 1 wasn't crazy. Year 2 wasn't crazy. He's locked in with Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant for like the next 4 years. No good quarterback in sight. Wide receiver 21 is a little bit rich for me. If I could send him straight up for an asset that would be a first round, remember, Deshaun Watson, the minute he touches the field, is a first round pick in dynasty startups. The mountains that Jerry Jeudy would have to move to ever be a first round pick in dynasty is wild. That's why I would send Jeudy away for him. You can also send a mid to late first for Deshaun Watson. I would do that all day long in a rebuild, especially considering how weak this quarterback class is. If I have like 5 first round picks in 2022, I don't mind at all moving one of those mid to late ones for Deshaun. Then we have another buy for rebuilders. We're going to talk about DJ Moore, who is the 408, the wide receiver 15 on Keep Trade Cut, which is pretty crazy to me. I have him as my 305 as the wide receiver 8. When it comes to DJ Moore, I couldn't be more confident that DJ Moore is a really, really good player. A really good player in real life, in fantasy. You don't do what DJ Moore has done over his first, 4 years as a player on accident. And I know that hasn't showed up completely in the fantasy point column, but in terms of the volume that he commands, he's winning on routes. He looked really good in reception perception in the offseason. I'm sure he looked really good this year. DJ Moore is earning the 3rd highest target share in the NFL with a 27.4% target share behind only Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. You don't earn that kind of massive volume when we know that targets are, they're earned. It's a skill by accident. And the only reason that he hasn't produced as a high-end wide receiver one is because he's been snake bitten by awful quarterback play. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about DJ Moore, you have to put quarterback play aside when we're talking about in Dynasty, especially when we're talking about a 24-year-old player. He is 24. He was a former first-round pick, stud prospect, freshman breakout, all the works. And he showed us what he can do with just an average quarterback. He had Sam Darnold this year playing good football for 4 games, and he was the wide receiver 4 through 4 weeks, DJ Moore. And I always say in Dynasty, I'm betting on talent long-term. So many situations change. Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers would have never been seen a year before it happened. A bunch of these moves happen randomly. And when a player is early on in their career and you're not, getting a Keenan Allen, if you buy a Keenan Allen, you're getting near-term production. You're buying near-term production. You care about the situation right now. If I'm getting DJ Moore, who has 3 years until he's 27, I don't care as much about his situation right now, especially when you're getting that discount at wide receiver 15. These are the kinds of players you want to bet on these rebuilds. These players that are good. The situation doesn't look amazing, but that's how you get guys that come out of the woodworks. Like you have guys like Deebo Samuel this year. You didn't have the best situation. Ayuk, Kittle, Jimmy Garoppolo. You also have guys like Cooper Kupp, who had Jared Goff forever. Looked like it capped his upside. He gets Matthew Stafford out of nowhere. Boom, skyrockets. So DJ Moore can have a similar type trajectory. I'm going to bet on talent. He has it. Again, wide receiver 3 in target share. He's the wide receiver 10 in expected points per game. And they picked 7th overall, the Carolina Panthers, as of right now. Now, there's no amazing quarterbacks where they could get a Matt Corral, a Malik Willis, something to just add some kind of upside to this quarterback room. They could also sign a Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers, any of those guys in free agency. So with that being said, I love his price. I have never had DJ Moore lower than wide receiver 12 in my dynasty rankings. He's the perfect wide receiver to buy low on a rebuilder, right? We want to shift off those aging assets, like we said. buy a young wide receiver. They're one of the best assets to get, right? You get a young wide receiver because if you get a running back, you can have like a Cam Akers situation. Their shelf life is much shorter than a wide receiver. A DJ Moore type guy is a staple on a rebuilding team. He will always have hype. He will always have people, having goodwill towards DJ Moore. And I love his price at wide receiver 15 to buy low on him as a rebuilder. You can ship off those aging assets. I would buy for any first. You can do Pittman in a third. You can also do David Montgomery and Ronald Jones, which I think would be a really good move. If you're, a rebuilder, you ship off 2 running backs that are probably going to fall off in value over the next year or two, and you can go get DJ Moore in return, a much more, safe asset with upside to have one of those breakout wide receiver seasons. Then my last buy target for rebuilding teams is Saquon Barkley. And I think that this is going to get some people riled up. So like Saquon Barkley is one of these polarizing players people either love or hate. He is going at the 403 as the RB14 on Keep Trade Cut, and frankly, that is blasphemous. I have him on my rankings as the 112 as the RB4. If you want to say he's a late second, fine. I think that market value should be that Saquon Barkley is a second round pick in startups. Implying that he is a 4th round pick in startups is wild. Remember, this is Saquon Barkley, and I get that he's been bad this year, but I'm willing to kind of just chalk this up to being injury, right? He came off an ACL, looked decent, then he had the ankle injury, just couldn't really get things going. Had Mike Glennon as his quarterback, had Jake Fromm as his quarterback at one point, an awful team. It feels very similar to Kamara's disappointing 2019, and then he blows up in 2020, right? So Kamara kind of gets some people that feel stung by Kamara, then in 2020, he blows up. Remember this with Saquon. He is not young by any means, but he's not old by any means. He's 24. He is literally 13 months older than Najee Harris at this point. The idea that somebody could put him at RB14, even just outside of the top 10 running backs in Dynasty, is insane to me. He possesses monster upside. Saquon Barkley, as a rookie, had 24.1 points per game. And I get that was back when he was a rookie, but again, he's only 24. He's about to be 25. The only guys that have ever put up 24.1 points per game since that season: Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. Those are all 4 of those guys did that at the peak of their primes. Saquon did that as a rookie, and I think that just shows how talented he is. And I get that it hasn't been there since, but again, we're talking about a guy who's 25. Twitter doctors are saying that he should be good to go for 2020. I just think that if you were getting anything outside of the top 10 running backs as his price, you have to jump on that. Saquon Barkley is one of the few guys right now I think that you could put up there. You can put up JT, you can put up Derrick Henry, Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Kamara, and then after that, maybe you could put like Swift, Javonte Williams if you want, as guys that can put up that legendary running back season. I always talk about 22 points per game or more in a single season. Saquon Barkley is one of those guys that has access to that upside. I don't think that we can confidently say guys, ahead of him like a Joe Mixon has that. I don't think a guy ahead of him, like I want to say I've even seen J.K. Dobbins, I've even seen David Montgomery. Those guys don't have access to that ceiling that bring home the money in a league for you. Now, when we're talking about potential assets you could ship off for Saquon Barkley, apparently you could do something like Tom Brady and Darnell Mooney. So if you're a team that's rebuilding, you have Tom Brady, you want to ship him off, you get Tom Brady, you strap him up with a nice, wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, call it a day. If you also have Mac Jones, I know Mac Jones is a sell in a lot of these, we'll get to him later. Mac Jones is somebody that I'd be looking to sell to get assets like a Saquon Barkley. Mac Jones will never win you a fantasy league. If you can get Mac Jones in a third, ship it for Saquon, that's apparently something you can do. You can also do a mid-first plus Taylor Heineke according to Keep Trade Cut. Now, I got to say, I think Keep Trade Cut is a little bit inaccurate with RB14. I'd be shocked people were saying RB14 is where they have Saquon Barkley, but that's apparently where the market is at. I think maybe something more in the RB8 to RB10 range is a little bit more, realistic. So if you got to, juice these offers up a little bit, then sure. But again, I'm just listing off things that are equal on the trade chart. Because I mentioned Mac Jones, we might as well go down to Mac Jones, and this is going to be a sell for contenders. So now we're switching gears to contenders, and Mac Jones is the 501 as the QB14 on Keep Trade Cut. He is the 606 as the quarterback 19 for me personally. I think that Mac Jones, the in real life quarterback, is going to be a fine long-term starter, even, an upper tier type guy, somewhere in the range of, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, somewhere in that range of underappreciated starter that is pretty good. I just have a hard time buying into him in fantasy. He is quarterback 26 in points per game as a rookie. And I get that he's playing well. His PFF grades are great. But again, he is quarterback 26 in points per game as a rookie. I'm just not sure how we get from here where he's already playing amazing. He is playing some of his best football. And again, he is quarterback 26 in points per game. So I don't get how we go from here to a quarterback one season without a couple of, either outlier years where we have like a Matt Ryan MVP season. He needs to have an awful defense, which is hard to see on a Patriots team where Bill Belichick always has a good defense. He would need to have like, year over year quarterback one seasons. He would have to become Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. And he's a zero with his legs. He'd have to become Peyton Manning or Tom Brady because he's a zero in terms of rushing. He doesn't run the ball well. He's not a scrambling quarterback. He doesn't work. I mean, if we're talking 6 touchdown leagues, you can throw this out the window. Mac Jones much higher in 6 touchdown leagues, but in the standard 4-point touchdown leagues, Mac Jones for me is tough to put up there as a top 15 dynasty quarterback. I'm just not very interested in the guys that can't run. If I can just go trade for, Carson Wentz, Derek Carr, Daniel Jones, all those kinds of guys that can give you usable production. And if I'm a contender with Mac Jones, it's a no-brainer to sell him off to a rebuilding team. You can sell him for something like Keenan Allen and Antonio Brown in a third. So 2 guys that are going to be, in my opinion, wide receiver ones for the fantasy playoffs. So if you're making a push, you ship off Mac Jones for Keenan Allen, Antonio Brown, you can get like a third on top of that. I think that makes a lot of sense for a contending team. And then also you can just do straight up for like a 23 first. That 23 class we know is amazing. Jahmyr Gibbs just transferred to Alabama. We have Bijan Robinson. You have Zach Evans. You have an amazing class there. I would take pretty much any 23 first over Mac Jones at this point. I think that's also another good move you could do there. And to touch on Antonio Brown for a second here, I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, why would you go out there and trade for Antonio Brown? He's another trade target for a contending team. I think you should go out there. If you're contending, you're in the playoffs. The guy who is Antonio Brown isn't in the playoffs. Go make an offer to him. Right now, he is valued at the 1503 as the wide receiver 65 on Keep Trade Cut. In my rankings, this is pre Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, injuries, all of that. He was the wide receiver 47 as my 1009 for me. Antonio Brown has league-winning upside. You can get him for dirt cheap. Again, Chris Godwin tore his ACL. Mike Evans should be back this week, but has some kind of hamstring injury. Antonio Brown is a guy that could be a wide receiver 1 down the stretch for these last 2 weeks of the season. He is the wide receiver 6 in points per game in his 5 games played this year with 19.1 points per game. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both active over the span of those 5 games. Antonio Brown has massive, massive upside. The price refuses to adjust on him. I think that he bumped up to like wide receiver 62 since that news came out. You can get him for like 1 to 2 thirds right now. I would even debate something like 3 thirds. I would even debate something like a second and maybe something on the Antonio Brown side. He is somebody that could, be a league winner for a really cheap price. Then our bonus sell is a guy that I would sell in all situations, whether I'm contending or I'm rebuilding. Najee Harris. He is going at the 110 as the RB3. In my rankings, I have him as the 301 as the RB6. And Najee Harris scares me because he doesn't look amazing. He doesn't look explosive. To me, I'm looking with these running backs. We have seen it this year. All of these guys get hurt. All of the top running backs are missing 2 to 3 games minimum. A lot of them going on IR, a lot of them missing the entire season. If you're going to roster running backs on your team, they need to have access to that legendary league-winning upside that we talk about. They need to have 22 plus points per game in their range of outcomes. To me, Najee Harris doesn't have that. He's not going to break off enough runs. He's not going to be efficient enough. You need to have Najee Harris be force-fed 100 plus receptions for him to even sniff 22 plus points per game. It's tough, man. He is leading the league right now and underperforming his expected output by 3.3 points per game. He is expected 20.7 points per game. So he's not even getting to 22 points per game on volume alone, right? So if he was expected 22 points per game and he just was exactly average, he could hit a legendary running back season. Right now, he's getting a ton of volume. He's still not hitting that. Even so, he isn't getting enough explosive plays or anything like that to balance out his efficiency. So at a 20.7 expected points per game, he is underperforming that down to 17.4 points per game. So if he is underperforming by roughly 3 points per game, he would need a 25 point per game expected output for him to be a legendary running back. There is no running back this year with above like a 21 point expected points per game output. I want to say Jonathan Taylor has a lower expected points per game than Najee Harris. Najee Harris to me, and I know a lot of you guys love Najee Harris. Again, he's my RB6, okay? He's a top 6 dynasty running back to me. The problem why I can't put him higher is I get that he's young. I get where the market has him. I just can't put him that high because I don't see that upside in his range of outcomes. Sure, he's commanded a bunch of volume, but to really propel yourself into being a legendary running back, you have to be, undeniable in terms of your talent. He is the 44th running back in rush grade per PFF. He is behind guys that you would be mortified to see him behind. 44. There are 43 running backs that grade better than him per PFF. He's 41st in yards after contact per attempt. He doesn't create yards or big plays, and that was the problem I had with him coming in. He doesn't create anything special. And I think that we're looking at a guy who is propped up by volume, and that's completely fine for a young running back. That's still, he has a place in the market of Dynasty. I don't see him as one of these cornerstone assets that a lot of people do, where they have him as a back-end first-round pick in startups. I think we're looking at the next Leonard Fournette. I think we're looking at the next Josh Jacobs, first-round running backs propelled by volume in year 1 and year 2, and then they kind of slowly trickle off and never give you a league-winning season. You just kind of hold on to their value. Ticks down every year. You never cash out on it. They never give you value to, cash in on a championship. So you kind of just get left holding the bag. So I would be out there looking to, ship him off for, if you can get like 3 firsts for him, I would. If you could get, 2 firsts and a piece for him, I would. I would maybe even do, like, if you could do 2 2023 firsts, that would maybe get there for me. I also saw in the calculator you can do something like Saquon and either Zach Wilson, Calvin Ridley, or Hollywood Brown. I would do that. So Saquon plus one of those guys. You can do Hollywood Brown and Stephon Diggs. I would do a move like that as well. If I'm a contending team, if I'm rebuilding, I would do, maybe like 2 firsts and a piece. But I'm just not sure how Najee Harris's price ever goes higher than RB3. You're betting on a guy he's literally a year older than Jonathan Taylor. There's no world out there where he beats out Jonathan Taylor anytime soon. He's already 23. He's playing at the peak of his powers. I don't see how he now goes into the next offseason and improves and becomes this way better player when he's already developed and older. I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing the upside that some others do. And I think that a lot of his value is just perception and insulation from the market. So with that, I would just be looking to sell. Now, obviously not just sell for pennies, but cash in on what the market values him at. Now, that's going to do it for today, fellas. If you are, curious of where I value my players in Dynasty, I have my Dynasty rankings down below in the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. With that being said, it is 11:15 p.m. I'm going to go upstairs, get some sleep. I love you guys, and as always, I will see you in the next one.
Yep. Juice, 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 juice. Yup. 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 Yup.